Watch the Doctors is moving, and you're going to love the new location. Download It's Real Good TV to join your friends from Hope Memorial. Available online and all your devices. Already a Doctors subscriber? Then there's an email headed your way with a coupon code for free access, plus special bonuses for starting your new account on It's Real Good TV. Haven't gotten your email? Don't worry, you will soon. For details, visit itsrealgoodtv.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first ever SoapCon Live in the Locker Room. I'm Alan Locher. SoapCon Live is the first Comic-Con for soaps. Please go to soapconlive.com for the full schedule of events and learn how you can purchase virtual meet and greets, autographs, and video messages with your favorite daytime stars. The cast here today will be featured for those opportunities down the road for the Doctors, and we will make sure to notify you when they are scheduled. Don't forget to stay tuned for the next panels and don't miss some of the surprises in between each panel today. I've been partnering with Retro TV, and today Retro TV is partnering with SoapCon Live to bring you this virtual reunion featuring cast members from The Doctors. The Doctors debuted in 1963 as an anthology, with each episode revolving around a medical emergency plot. As the series transitioned into a series daytime drama, the staff from the fictional Hope Memorial Hospital kept fans on the edge of their seats until its last episode on December 31st, 1982. The show featured an illustrious list of famous actors, including such notables as Alec Baldwin, Kathleen Turner, Brooke Shields, Armand Asante, Kathy Bates, Ted Danson, Ellen Burstyn, Julia Duffy, and the great cast of actors I am lucky to have here with me today. Don't forget, we'll be taking questions in a little while, so please get them ready and write them in the comments section. Now, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome to SoapCon Live Nancy Stafford, Anna Stuart, Frank Telfer, and Marie Thomas Foster.
Hey, Alan.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
How fun.
My pleasure. I know everybody's really excited to see you all. Let's go back. Do you all remember your audition, or did you have to screen test for the Doctors?
Yes, I remember.
Go ahead, Marie.
Alan?
Well, I was in a Broadway show at the time, Don't Bother Me, Can't Cope, and had a possibility to leave that to go to something else. Then I got a call to come in and audition for the Doctors. And so all I remember is walking in a little space and saying a few lines and feeling a little good about that and excited. It didn't matter one way or the other because I had a job, you see. So, but it was nice to think to be on daytime television. I grew up with daytime television. My mother watching all those shows and Guiding Light and all of that. It was very simplistic. Mm-hmm. I'm done.
Okay, Nancy, you remember?
I do remember. It was actually my first audition for anything in television except commercials. And I had gone to New York to study. I started in Miami doing commercials and modeling, studying in New York, only studying, got drafted into the Ford model agency. And Eileen Ford, if anybody ever knew her, she was, this grouchy.
Icon. She was an icon.
Yeah, really, she's an icon, but she was not warm and fuzzy. And, but she said, so you're old. You're really old. I was 24 years old when I joined her agency. She says, but I'll take you because you're going to make me money. She said, what do you really want to do? I said, well, I'm here to be an actress. And she said, well, you'll never make it. She said, but I'll send you out. You're the only one I have on my roster I'll send out for auditions. Well, that was the first audition she sent me on. And I don't remember it at all, except that my knees were clacking and I was terrified. And I don't know why, miracle of miracles, I got it and was ever so grateful. And she never let me forget it, that she was the one that got me the Doctor.
Hey, that's okay. You can be grateful.
I'm totally grateful. We were good friends until the end for her, until she passed away. Yeah.
Anna, do you remember?
Oh, yeah. You want the long version or the short version? Give you the long version. I've been out of work for a while because I came to New York when I was 19 and I didn't get the Doctors until I was 23. And I'd been out of work for a while and a friend of mine was the head veterinarian for the New York State Racing Commission, and he asked me if I wanted to come and exercise horses at the racetrack, and I said sure. And so then I get a call from my agent, and she has this audition for me for a soap opera, and I went, ew. Well, movie and theater. So I went, and they called me back, and I happened to be shooting a commercial that day for Johnson & Johnson bath oil beads, and it was in this big empty movie studio in the middle of February, and I was in this bathtub in the middle of the room, and they kept pouring hot water in there, and I kept pouring Johnson & Johnson bath oil beads into the water so that it was slimy green by the end of the day. And my skin was all red because they kept putting this hot water in. So then I run out, all straggly looking, to the callback, which fortunately had been late that day. And a few days later, they called me. They wanted to do a screen test. By that time, I had 103-degree fever because being out in the rain and sopping wet and all that, I got sick. So by the time I got to the screen test, I didn't care. Because I was like, I felt so crummy. And they were testing Adriene Barbeau, who later went on to do Maude, and an actress named Jennifer Darling. I don't know what Jennifer went on to do. So it was we three. So I did the audition, and on the way down, the doctors shot on the 7th floor. And I was told this a number of years later, that it was the producer, the director, and whoever was head of NBC Daytime at the time. And the director never really has any say-so when they're casting. But halfway down, they said to Norm, they were talking about their choice. It was Adriene Barbeau. And halfway down, they said, so what do you think, Norm? And Norm said, I think you're crazy. I think Anna Stuart will be an ingenue for longer, and I think she would be better. So by the time—
And for those watching, Adriene Barbeau was Maud's daughter.
Yeah.
I said that too fast.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that.
So by the time they got to the lobby, I had the role. And so just to make it longer, the first audition, I auditioned the first day of rehearsal, which was in the lobby of the Edison Hotel, where Luca Brasi got strangled in the in the door in The Godfather. Jim Pritchard, who was the lead at the time, the main doctor, had said to me, where was I from? And I told him where I was from. And he said, I knew some people from Bluefield. And he said, Fuchsenberger. And I said, oh, those are my grandparents. And he said, no, they'd be too old. It turns out that he was good friends with my two uncles and dated my Aunt Betty when he was in college.
That's right.
Really, which was
Small world.
Oh, very small.
Yeah. So that
Small world.
that was my beginnings on the doctors.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Nancy, when you auditioned, did you know it would be twins?
No, nor did I know as we started shooting. That storyline evolved after we got into it. And, or maybe they knew, but they didn't bother to tell me. But we are actually a mother-daughter. We weren't even twins.
Oh, right. You were
Right.
You were playing dual roles. I forgot
Yes,
that. Yeah, sorry.
dual roles.
Yep.
Yeah. So that evolved, and it was nutty. It was crazy, wonderful fun, incredible. I was so stretched, but really wacky, crazy fun. Yeah. I mean, I got to do all the fun stuff the whole last year.
I can't imagine what it was like at that period of time in technology to play a dual role. Today it's a lot easier, but back then. Frank, do you remember your audition for the show?
Oh God, yeah. I went to several auditions. I've been in New York for about a year. I was doing the modeling job in Wilhelmina's, and I had a lot of commercials behind me and all that. And I was doing these soap opera auditions. And I wasn't doing very well. In fact, I had one part where I was supposed to go in and play this slick gambler from New Orleans. So I wore all white, a white hat. Man, I went ready, you know, Stanislavski method. I got involved. And I'm supposed to be this spoiled brat from the mob down in New Orleans. So all my lines were F you, F you, F you. Those are the lines. But I'm supposed to be enraged. And I'm supposed to show how horrible I am, what a brat I am. So I'm really building it up. I walked in and I didn't even introduce myself. I just hit him with F you, F you, F you. They said, thank you. Next. And my agent called me up and said, what the hell did you do? They said, never have you ever come in that door again. And I said, why? They said, you're crazy. And I said, well, that's what I was playing. But anyway, I realized, no, introduce yourself first, Frank, before you walk in. I didn't have a good opinion about the whole thing. And I had this audition for the doctors. I didn't even study. I was down on it. These people don't know what they're doing. You know, they don't know real acting and all this. So I went in and I read, and the casting woman, I cannot think of her name, said to me, you know, that was the worst reading I've ever heard. And I said, really? And she said, yeah. And she said, you know, the sad.
Oh, no, Frank.
Oh, no.
Frank is
We're on pins and needles.
In the middle of a story. Marie,
Oh.
were you a professional singer when you were cast?
I am
already?
not a professional singer. I am an actress that sings. And I always have to clarify that because people want me to sing and perform. But no, I'm an actress who sings. And
Did they ask if you sang when you joined?
I was in Don't Bother Me, Can't Cope, and it was a musical. And I was the understudy for Mickey Grant, who was the lead in the show. Mm-hmm. They assumed that I could sing, and I could sing. So I don't even remember that part. I just remember having to go back. Once I got it, go into the studio and sing this enormously high-pitched song. And I've been thinking about that, and I said, how in the did I ever accomplish that? It's because I had an incredible voice teacher who taught me to use a trumpet mouthpiece to strengthen my diaphragm and placement. And I was able to hit those notes and keep going, and I had the strength in my diaphragm, and I had breathing exercises and, strength to be able to do it. I look at it now in utter amazement. How the heck did I do that?
So funny. So I'm fascinated by Nancy and Frank, who came from the modeling end of things into their first role. What do you think the doctors taught both of you that you took everywhere else after? Nancy?
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead, Nancy.
You're thrown into the deep end. I mean, I learned how to work fast.
Yeah.
I learned how to just be totally ready for anything they may need. I learned how to be a team player. I learned how to do a ton of dialogue, especially with 2 roles. I mean, I had 40 pages of, we were only a half-hour show.
Yeah.
But I had 40 pages dialogue toward the end. I mean, it was tons of dialogue. And so I just learned just a tremendous amount of just a working ethic and a skill of just being able to be ready on the moment, and how to work with people quickly, how to find that relationship and kind of, as you guys know, there's no rehearsal. It's basically, sometimes it's dry run, block, camera block, then you're on. So I'll be forever grateful. Really. It was an amazing way to learn for me.
I mean, one character would have probably been amazing to learn from, and then and then 2. So yeah, it was
crazy. And your earlier point about how with now modern technology playing 2 roles, especially one who ages throughout the show to 80 years old. I mean, it was a huge transformation for the mother. But we did it old school. So we learned the hard way. As I began to age more accelerated, the storyline was crazy. I was on this, magic serum to make myself look young so I could compete with my own daughter, who I was jealous of because I wanted her fiance for myself. So the handsome Dr. Jeff. So, but the bad part about a magic serum, just so you know, is that it wears off, and you don't just decelerate to 40. You go all the way to 80 years old, which is what I did. So they got the wonderful Rick Baker, who, if any of you all remember, Little Big Man. Yes, he created Dustin Hoffman's incredible mask and face, that latex model of him for Little Big Man, and he was the guy in the industry for special effects
makeup.
And, yeah, that's what he did, and he was brought in to create my look. And so we did it. I had 3 hours of makeup by the end because he created every day a brand new latex mask that would be gradually wrinkled, and by the end it was just crazy wrinkled. And then they'd make me up and put the gray wig on, do my hands, do my chest, the whole thing. But then we learned we would do often the old makeup first and then do the young me, and peeling that latex off. Then we had to wait an hour for my skin to get less red. So we started shooting all the young me scenes first. Then we'd have a stand-in, they'd shoot over her shoulder with my old me costume and wig. And then they'd send me off to makeup for 3 hours. And then we'd shoot all my old me stuff. So it was crazy. But I'll tell you what was interesting, just sitting quietly in the room. We were in a different makeup room, just being quiet. And as that mask would go on, and day by day, as it got more and more and more wrinkled, I sat there, and I wasn't even trained enough at that point as an actor to understand all of this, but I just sat in that chair and my whole body began to just sort of cave in. I walked differently. I slumped. I just got teary-eyed just imagining this is me in 60 years. It was, and he is so masterful at finding your vulnerabilities. Because I asked him, how do you know how I'll age? I'm dewy 24-year-old, How do you know I'll age? He goes, I'm looking at your face. I know exactly where you'll age. And he gave me jowls and he, big, bags and sockets under my eyes. I mean, it was amazing. I had a nervous breakdown by the end of the show.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But hey.
I know how
you.
Can I say something? I know how you must feel. I played a woman 103 years old in the play Having Our Say at the Goodman Theater 2 years ago. And as we continued we were made up, but we weren't made up that much, but they taught us how to do things and then they gave us the wig. But eventually you become this person and you don't realize it because of all the accoutrement, all the stuff that you are dealing with. And I had a friend of mine said, I'll be glad when this play is over. I said, why? So you can stand up straight. I said, I am standing up straight the way I think I should stand up. I'm going to move. I'll be right back. But you all go ahead. There's something I want to show you. I'll be right back. Okay.
Hey, Anna, I was going to ask, fans were curious about the rape scene between Mike and Toni. Any thoughts on how it got past the censors back then?
I do not.
What do you remember about that?
Yeah, Alan?
Yep.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Who raped me? Was it? It wouldn't have been Mike.
It was. I love that.
Were we?
At least you know it was Mike. At least you know it was Mike.
Why did he rape me?
Oh, that I don't know. Maybe a fan will tell us.
Was that on the
Anna, you have blocked this. This is crazy. You've totally blocked this.
Remember the audition. No, there's so much I remember. I had a lot.
Well, but that's probably, I mean, you were also very young. You were also very young.
Yeah.
That's probably a hard scene
probably
to
very
do.
Emotional.
Yeah, totally. Totally understandable. Frank, what do you think you learned from working on The Doctors?
You should ask, what did I learn?
What is going on with Frank?
On The Doctors? Oh.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Because my mic keeps going on and off. Sorry. what I learned about the doctors, I would say all that time in front of the camera, you get to feel very comfortable.
Mhm.
And I've never had a problem in front of the camera in my life after the doctors. I feel at home. I was doing a thing not too long ago on camera, and I was with a lady that is very famous, and but she's not in front of the camera. And I said, "This is where I feel at home." And she laughed. She goes, "I bet you do." So when you consider the amount of hours, I bet Nancy could probably, all you guys could, the amount of hours that you put in is immense. And it's fantastic. And one of the luckiest things about me is the only way I got through school, because I was the dumbest kid in school. I memorized everything. I learned how to do my test by just memorizing everything. And the teacher used to tell me all the time, "You're never going to learn, Frank. Never going to learn that way." Well, wouldn't you know, the greatest thing that I can do is memorize, help me out the best in my career. And I've never had a problem. Memorization has always been easy because that's how I got through school. I didn't learn a damn thing.
Great.
But, you know.
Do you all remember this? Look at this. What is that, guys? That's the Emmy Award that the doctors got in 1971 or 20.
Oh, wow.
That's
Wow.
right.
Come on. I'm cleaning up my house, getting rid of stuff, and I found this picture. My husband took that. And I was on from 73 to 75. So this was before I came on, actually. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Yes.
Who won?
The doctors won this.
The doctors won for best show?
Best show. Yes. When they started giving out the Emmys, the doctors
won also, didn't he?
Yeah, Jim eventually did win, yes, but I wasn't on the show. But I found this and I said, I'm going to share this with you guys.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Did the husband made me take the picture? He said, "Stand by the Emmy, stand by the Emmy." I said, "Oh, no, I didn't win." He said, "Yes, you did." There it
is. That a doctor's t-shirt?
Oh, I love it.
That's,
Frank, where'd you get that?
Zoom in.
Oh, my God, I love that. That's great.
I kept this from the day I got it. I gave it to my kid.
Oh, wow.
And then he didn't wear it. But there you are, Glenn Corbett and Jada and Steve and David O'Brien. And
David O'Brien.
Felicia.
Oh, my God.
The whole bunch.
Wow.
That's nice.
Oh, how.
That is a collectible right there. That is a collectible.
I know.
Amazing.
You know, this is a collectible. And someone told me this one is for sale on the internet. And I mean, it's a piece of change. I was surprised. So
I'm sure.
Somebody who asked for scripts. And I'll give
it to my son. And he'll sell it.
That's so fun. Oh, look at that. Freeman tells us the doctors won in 1972 and 74.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Serious. Yeah.
Nice. Anna, what do you remember about working with Armand Asante?
So I did. I worked with Armand.
And Anna did, yeah.
Armand was, well, first of all, I adored him. And we were great buddies. And he was a hot, sexy guy. I've never, the hot, sexy guys in my life, I've always been really good friends with. I like the character actors. So Armand and I, first of all,
you're great friends with your Michael Hudson, Cal Brown.
Yes. But I loved Armand. He was very, very intense. And as Nancy said, we did not get much rehearsal. But with each rehearsal, he would get more and more. And when we had love scenes to do, he would hold me. He would grab my arm harder and harder and harder, so that I finally said, "You've got to stop doing this. You're hurting me." And he said, "I'm so sorry." He shared with me a few years later that he had gotten addicted to coffee, and he was drinking coffee all day long, all day into the night, so that it added to even more of his intensity. But we stayed friends for years. I haven't been in touch with him in a long time, but he actually has a house, a farm up in this area where I live.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So,
well, I'm going to start taking questions from fans. And Nancy, Alan Brown says, as a former member of Miss Florida Board of Directors, so proud of all Nancy's accomplished since her year as Miss Florida. Did you think Miss Florida helped or hindered your pursuing acting?
You know, I think it was the whole Miss America system. I am ever grateful for it. I don't believe it hindered necessarily at all. I was thinking about that actually on my way in to do this interview today, and realizing the things I learned the year I was Miss Florida, which was right out my first year out of college, were being sort of out in the public, being a person of known, you know, that people know. Those things taught me how to be not an actor from the artistic point of view, but how to have an actor's generosity toward the fans, and how to maintain that life and be grateful for notoriety. And that it's not something like, oh, I have to hide from it, or I don't know how to do it. I had learned the year I was Miss Florida how to live a life in some limelight. And I loved it, made great friends, still good friends with many today. And I will forever love the Miss America system because it's scholarship based, even though I know they do all the other stuff. But it got me through part of my some graduate education, after my bachelor's degree. And I just am a fan. I really am grateful.
Yeah, that's great. Anna, Kevin Hanna was asking, how did you feel when Ken left, Cal left Another World in 1998? You must have been, because you were so close.
Yeah, that was really tough. I was very sad. I knew, because we were so close, I knew that we would stay very much in touch. But, you know, when you get involved with people, actors especially, we get very, very involved with people, and then sometimes we never see them again. But in the case of Kayla and I, it was very sad. And to expand on the answer, we auditioned many people for the part of Michael. I say we, you know, I always had to.
Another World.
Another World, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Another World. And they auditioned lots of people, and nobody would work. And one day when they were doing more auditions, some guy walked out of a dressing room at the very end of the hallway, and I went, that's him. That's him. That's him. And they said, what the hell are you talking about, Anna? I said, that's Michael. So I go downstairs where this guy is auditioning, and he gave a really but I'm in the control room, and I said, that is Michael. You've got to hire this guy. And they did. So it all worked out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Frank, Mitch S. was asking if any fun stories of working with Larry Weber and beautiful Jane Badler.
Yeah. Larry Weber, what I loved about Larry, he actually became a very good friend of mine. He used to come and see me on Roosevelt Island all the time when I had this little baby boy. He was only like 2 years old. And Larry used to take me up and down Broadway and show me where all the stages, theaters used to be when he was a little boy. On each corner, there used to be a theater on each corner. And he said in those days, my mom and dad would work all the way from First Street all the way up to 90th Street. And then you have a whole new act and go start at First Street again. Also, his mom and dad were the famous vaudeville act, Weber and Fields. They used to play in front of the kings and queens of Europe and all that stuff. So Larry was a good friend. Jane was a fabulous girl. I always had a good time with her. I always thought that she was a sweetheart. I really tried hard, you know. Used to get picked on. I'm not going to say by who, but used to get picked on all the time. And I used to get a little frustrated about that. But Jane was just
And Marie, what was it like to work with Palmer Dean?
Oh, I adored Palmer. We became good friends. And he was very intense a lot of times because he was trying to make sure he remembered his lines. And Anna remembers.
That is an important thing.
Yeah,
like
he'll be over in
somebody.
the corner working. And so I would go over there and I would say, "Oh, are you going to do it like that?" And that would just make him even more nervous. So I didn't do that anymore. But we became very good friends after the show, off set. And he and I did a show together down on West 20th on the direction of the Net based on All the King's Men. And he was very nervous at first doing it, but he was really quite good. He was very shy, very private, but he would come out to visit. He was a beautiful artist. I don't think people knew this. He did beautiful paintings and calligraphy and things like that. He was very, very special. And then he finally realized he could tease me. He'd come up and say, "Is that how you sang that song like that? Why'd you do it like that?" I ignored him and just walked away.
He sassed you.
Yeah.
He sassed you.
Yeah, we had a nice relationship. It was heartbreaking when he passed away, but anyway, those were the days we lived in. And he would come see things that I did. He was a very good friend. I did a show. Anna, you and I did this. As You Like It. Do you remember Geraldine directed it? Yeah. And at one point, I had this.
The two of you did this together?
Yeah, we did off Broadway in the big theater or something. And Geraldine, what Geraldine's last name?
Gordon.
Geraldine Court directed it, and she called it As Like It instead of As You.
Geraldine Court, yes.
Geraldine Court. So I'm playing Phoebe, the crazy woman in the forest, and I'm trying to do this. I can feel that I was losing it. I could just feel it wasn't coming. Finally, I got to the point where I just turned to the audience and said, "Oh, who cares?" At that point, I couldn't fix it. There was no way around ad-libbing Mr. Shakespeare. So I just said, okay. So Palmer said to me, he said, at one point, it was so good, I thought I would just go to the book to see what was actually written in there. I said, no, it was my way of getting off as quickly as I could.
That's great. Hey, Anna, Freeman was asking, did you know you had great chemistry with Peter Burnell, Gerald Gordon, and the wonderful Sally Gracie?
Would like to know if I had such great chemistry.
Did you realize you had great chemistry with these people? With Peter Burnell, Gerald Gordon, and Sally?
Did I realize it? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I loved all of them. Jerry, of course, he was Gerald. Hey, how you doing? And I didn't even wait for your answer. He'd just go off to the other side. I really liked him, and Peter was just a sweetheart.
Oh, Peter was delightful. Yeah.
Sally she was like Martha, her character, in that she took me under her wing, and she had Charles. Her husband's name was Charles, and they were both very eccentric, and they had this son in real life who just thought they were weird and wanted.
Tim Carey.
I don't know if everybody knows this, her first husband, who she would refer to as Rodney.
Yeah.
Her was Rod Steiger.
Yeah.
Which is hard to
imagine. The rings. Do you remember the rings she used to show us? And these came from Rodney. She would say there were about 3 or 4 diamonds on her fingers or something like that.
It's hard to imagine Sally with her personality and Rod Steiger, who I never knew, but he was a piece of work, apparently.
Yeah.
So yes, I absolutely remember my chemistry with them.
It's great. I mean, it must change a role for all of you, and when it works.
Yeah.
And it changes
when you're paired,
all of you when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
What did you say?
I said, and it changes the role for all of you when it doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Yeah,
you're working with somebody, and you have to make it look like you really love them or like them or so on and so forth.
I thought Peter, I'm sorry, but I thought Peter was really very special. I had some mean scenes with him. We were not good buddies. And I loved the scenes because he was so right there, and I'd come back and it was just beautiful. And then
that works when you're friends with somebody and then you can be mean. I'm sure it adds something. Nancy, can you talk about your experience on Matlock? What?
Yeah, all day long. How much time do we have?
Well, what was
I
it like when you got the call and they said you got the part?
Well, my husband to be, who we were simply dating at that point, but we had pulled into a little bistro in the valley, and he had picked me up actually at the airport at LAX. I had gone to New York for my screen test. And so he had picked me up, and we were supposed to find out that day if a house that I had put an offer in Marina Del Rey, that was the day I was going to find out if it was accepted. And I was supposed to find out also within the hour if I got the Matlock role. So we went to this little bistro and sat there, and we ordered a bottle of champagne and put it on ice and said, we're not opening it yet. So as soon, and the order of the joy came, interestingly, the house, we got word that I got the house first. And then it was like, great. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. I hope I get the job. And a few minutes later, we got the job. I got the notice that I had gotten the role. And so we popped that champagne, and it was just 5 of really the most fun, incredible years of my life. I mean, I loved every second of it. It was a party every time. Working with an American icon, it's pretty astounding. Every day was a master class, just like I felt doing the Doctors. As a very young green actor, I was in a master class with all of these guys. And so working with Andy was amazing. I adored him. We became good friends. And again, I pinch myself with how lucky I am and how blessed.
I'm watching the reruns. What part did you do? What was the name of it?
I played his law partner, Michelle.
Ah, I see you every day.
Yeah.
I watched Gil on Buck Rogers, believe it or not. I watch all.
Oh my gosh.
I don't watch regular television. I watch old television, real retro.
Yeah, me too. Retro TV. That's why we love retro TV.
Yeah. It's so funny. I didn't realize Gil Gerard had done soaps before. I know, now doing my show and doing this, The Doctors, fascinating that he, because just not a name that everybody mentions, for people who have done soap. What was he like?
And what's funny is that I didn't work with Gil on the Doctors, but I did a series with him for Disney on ABC for a year.
Yeah.
My first show when I moved to LA. No, my second show. I did St. Elsewhere first, and then I did this.
What was the name of the show?
It was called oh my gosh, Sidekicks with Ernie Reyes Jr. It was the sweetest little show, family show that should have gone forever. And we were put in a really bad time slot on a Friday night at 9:00, which is wrong for a family show. And we got canceled in a year. But Gil was a delight to work with on that.
I love him on Buck Rogers. I think he looks as good as he did on The Doctors when he was. And I just did MacIver with the new MacIver, the little boy. I called him little boy MacIver. And it was wonderful. It was a CBS thing. It was just wonderful. I was shipped to Atlanta, which is my home. And I think about that because that's where Matlock's show is based in Atlanta, Georgia. But I look at these young people, and I think about the real MacIver way back when. The little
Richard Dean Anderson. Richard Dean Anderson, who I think he began on soaps too.
I think he did.
This is supposed to be his son, the new MacIver. And there are 4 young people, millennials, who are just fabulous. There's Asian, Middle Eastern, African American, and of course, MacIver is a young white boy. But the nicest young people. And I was on with Dan Laria, who played the father in The Wonder Years. And he was grumbling. I said, no, look at these. They're fabulous. Look at them. They jump over people and leap over stuff. It must have been about 25 stuntmen. And I looked at it, I said, well, I hope I don't have to do any of that. It's wonderful to get to those big time, nighttime shows.
Kim Zimmer.
That's why I recognized you, because you look so familiar. I watch you every other day.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Marie, Kim Zimmer, who played Frank's sister on The Doctors.
Yeah.
is good friends with the original MacGyver, I think, because she did an episode of MacGyver.
Oh, okay. Talk about a collection of small, but Dan, I just remember vaguely from the Wonder Years. He was the father for eight years that show ran, I think. But I watched Matlock in the Heat of the Night, and then I love, now this sounds corny, but I love the Waltons. You know why? Because they're so wholesome and so good, and things happen.
Are you kidding, Marie? I started, which I had never watched during the pandemic, and my husband loved Little House on the Prairie.
Yes,
and
I watched that.
That really,
yeah.
I was amazed. I mean, I laughed because I know how many people love that show, and I had never watched it. It is the same thing. It's that wholesome. Hey, Frank, tell us about the kiss between Luke and Ivy Gooding. And what was so revolutionary about it at the time?
Say this again.
The kiss in The Doctors that you had with Ivy Gooding. Can you talk about that?
I haven't a clue what you're talking about.
Well, Jennifer told me, who was Ivy's father? No clue. So we'll skip that question. Tell me about your sisters. Don't worry. Tell me about your sisters, Kathleen Turner, Kim Zimmer, and Catherine Harold.
Yeah, what was it like? Talk about Kathleen forever. Catherine Harold. Kitty, yeah. Kitty
talk about the differences. And, talk about the differences between the three.
Well, Kitty. Between three. Well, Kitty was very wholesome, great breasts. I got to tell you, that's the first thing I noticed, and I'm sorry, but I'm a guy, and that's what I saw.
Which one?
My lines. I mean, geez, which look at this.
Which actress?
Kitty Harold.
Okay.
Kitty.
And then Kathleen Turner.
Then, Kathleen Turner came on, and Kitty left, and I was surprised she was leaving. And I just had a baby, and Kitty was so excited about me having a baby. I mean, she was every day asking me, "Did it come? Did it come?" You know? So I finally got a baby boy, and I just ran in and I told everybody and all that. So anyway, Kathleen Turner came in, and Kathleen was just a whole different style. Very, she played rich. She is rich. She's a star, and she played that role of someone that's kind of losing their mind as she's being a star and demands everything, and screws up terribly with Glenn Corbett, you know, her husband. And geez, but the things she did. And then Kim Zimmer, I got to laugh about Kim Zimmer. I was thinking about it today. Kim Zimmer introduced herself to Glenn Corbett rolling in on roller skates. She rolled in on roller skates from Park Avenue on hot pants. Great set of legs, Zimmer. I got to tell you, she was a dancer, but great set of legs.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
Yeah, introduces herself to Corbett, and Glenn Corbett did not. He just well, it's nice to meet you too, you know. But it was her way of making an entrance. Kim really knows how to make an entrance.
Yeah, that's for sure. Frank, I was talking about the interracial kiss.
Oh, the interracial kiss. Yeah.
Cab's daughter.
Asked me the last show, and she was so sweet. She's such a sweet gal. I really enjoyed her. And this is before I picked up some film on Cap Calloway. He has got the greatest tape on him doing a dance routine. It's the best routine I've ever seen in my life, and there isn't one take. Yeah, I mean, there isn't one stop. It's straight through, and it's amazing.
Wow.
If you guys would watch Cap Calloway, it's fantastic. But anyway,
so the kiss was with his daughter.
Frank,
his
real. I said, would you give me a kiss? This was Cap Calloway's daughter.
Wow.
Chris Calloway.
And you hearing me?
Yeah.
Chris Calloway, and she asked me to kiss her. So I said, sure, absolutely. So the last scene, the last show, we said goodbye, and I gave her a kiss. And she said, thank you. And she said, by the way, if you ever break up with that girlfriend of yours, give me a call.
Yeah.
And I said, I will. And anyway, I never realized that was the first black and white kiss on soap operas. And that's what she had in mind. Smart girl.
Wow.
Smart.
Subterfuge.
Anyway,
So she just snuck it in there, really.
you're talking about a wonderful woman.
Hey, Anna, have you and your husband, James Cromwell, ever worked on stage together?
No. No.
Would you?
We've talked about it. It to me, it's horrifying to think about it.
Why?
Because we're both such perfectionists, and we'll get into it with different things, and then we laugh at each other because we say, we're the same person. We get into that, but no, we've talked about it. But he keeps getting jobs, and he this year, of course, was really weird, because he had jobs that were stacking up, and he couldn't do them. But no, to answer your question, we have not. And just as a side, Frank, Kitty Harold's breasts. I walk with her, and there's an exercise that I don't know if women do it anymore or if they just get surgery, but you push your hands together. I must develop my bust. She didn't, but she walked around the studio. She was she's always doing that, because she knew that she had a responsibility to take care of her very lovely breasts. And and she was I remember that she was as mellow and as laid back, and I thought, why can't I be that way? And I would practice sometimes, and I couldn't do it. Her mother and my mother used to play bridge together, but I never knew her growing up. But
that is so
anyway,
funny.
So
that's a great
like
story.
your friends too, Frank, but for different reasons.
I heard the story. Great story.
Oh, you did? I'm glad. I'm so
glad.
glad you heard the story. Anna or Marie, can you speak about an actress who was briefly on the show named Ginger Gerlach? Do you remember her?
I do.
Maybe. Yeah.
She played in the role of Julie. Christopher was asking. I don't know if you remember.
I do, and I can't say that I remember enough to answer whatever question you want to know.
Okay, that's fine.
I remember people that
I
didn't
feel so
really,
much better now.
but I can't think of any that I didn't like, because we had such a small cast, and and I was one of the young ones on the set, as Marie was, I guess.
Yeah,
so kind of look up to
And Nancy.
Yeah.
And Nancy, did you enjoy working with James Douglas and Michael Stark?
Absolutely loved it. Both of them. And Steve Burley, too. The little romantic triangle between Steve Burley and Michael Stark, who I adored. And James Douglas was, oh my gosh. I love that man. He played Michael's father, Michael Stark's father. He was sort of a father figure to me, too. And yeah. And gosh, the most handsome man on the planet. Oh, I had such a crush. He was the age of my father, but I had just this massive little fluttery crush. Never would say anything, of course, because was extremely happy, and I was in a relationship, but still handsome, lovely man. Yeah.
That's great. And Chuck was asking Anna or Marie, any stories of working with Sally Gracie?
Oh, I loved her. I absolutely loved her. She ended up being my daughter's godmother. And a lot of times when I think about it, when I was pregnant, it was I was a lot older than when I had my son. And she said, well, you have to have this baby because you don't know. It could be the next Josephine Baker. And I said, you don't have to convince me. I'm looking forward to it. But she and I would chat to the end. And the beautiful thing I learned from her, when she got sick and she had to have chemo because she had cancer, and she had it for 5 times, but then it came back again. And I was in Florida, and I called to see how she was doing. And she was not doing well. And she said, come and see me. She said, I'm not afraid. I thought, magnificent. That brings me chills right now, just listening to. She says, I'm not afraid. She died just before 9/11. In other words, that happened a couple of months after that. And I went to the service we had for her, and Tim got up to talk to her about it. But one little lady came over to me and she said, I never knew how old she was. Now I know because it's in the obituary. I said, what difference does her age make? Probably because she didn't know and she wouldn't ask her, and certainly Sally wouldn't tell her. But I miss her to this day. I watched the reruns and I adore how we had a nice interplay together. And I watched how she learned her lines. She learned them in sections, and she kind of knew what she was going to say in certain sections. And if that didn't work, she said, "Hey, let's see." But
Nice.
she was great.
And Anna, do you any memories stand out?
Yeah, there are some stories that stand out. Well, there was one little thing. She and I, both of us, were pretty good improvising, because in those days you didn't stop and say, I'm up. You had to keep going, even though it wasn't live. It was right before they started doing, it was almost as if it were live. So they shot it like live. So I remember tripping over a ripped piece of a fabric on the sofa and her catching me and us laughing, which of course it wasn't in the script. And although this is not a story between the two of us, when she was married to Rodney, she would hang out sometimes in the commissary at whatever studio he was under contract. He was really close friends with Gregory Peck. And she, some of you younger members watching this telecast will not remember Bob Cummings or Robert Cummings. We all remember Robert Cummings here.
Yes,
Absolutely.
well, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was Bob Cummings, but to me, he wasn't like a big hunk or anything. But she's sitting there with Gregory Peck, who was her buddy. I mean, he was just Greg.
Oh,
And Bob Cummings walked into the commissary, and she just, Greg, look, there's Bob Cummings. Biggest star in Hollywood. So it was, and she laughed at herself when she told me that story. I can't say enough.
Great. I love that.
You always remember her voice. I heard her with Marlon Brando on something one night on late night television. It was a Tennessee Williams play, and I turned around and I said, "That's Sally." The voice was very.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. It really is so nice to see you. I know the fans have been thrilled today. You are our first SoapCon Live panel, so thank you all. And I will be in touch so we can talk about the meet and greets and all that other stuff and get those scheduled.
Okay. Thank you, Alan.
Thank
You're so
you.
welcome. Thank you all. Have a
Thanks,
great
everybody.
day.
Bye.
Bye. I'll see you tomorrow on Matlock on Monday.
Watch The
Bye-bye,
Doctors is
kid.
Moving, and you're going to love the new location. Download It's Real Good TV to join your friends from Hope Memorial. Available online and all your devices. Already a Doctor subscriber? Then there's an email headed your way with a coupon code for free access, plus special bonuses for starting your new account on It's Real Good TV. Haven't gotten your email? Don't worry, you will soon. For details, visit itsrealgoodtv.com.
Thanks for joining us for our first SoapCon Live panel with the cast of The Doctors. Stay tuned for As the World Turns, One Life to Live, and General Hospital this afternoon. And, if you didn't get to ask your question, visit soapconlive.com to stay up to date on all the meet and greets, autographs, and video messages that we have with all of your favorite daytime stars. I will see you all in 30 minutes for As the World Turns.
I am here with Emmy winner Ava LaRue of All My Children, The Young and the Restless. I mean, you are truly a daytime legend who is amongst daytime legends. How great is it to see some of that coming back?
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting to see it all coming back. Thank you for that introduction, by the way. Wow. And the exciting thing now is that, you know, they have announced that Pine Valley is going to be a new show for nighttime. So that's breaking barriers and crossing barriers for daytime into nighttime. And I think that that's really exciting because the show comes with its own, I mean, unlike other nighttime shows, which are being launched and they have to find their space and find their fans, we launch with a like decades long fan base. So I think that's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool, and especially about Pine Valley for you, is that it's the Santos, your family, and the Kane family, of course, with Susan Lucci. So it's like they're taking the two most iconic, you know, families, certainly of the 90s for me when I was growing up watching it. So it's so cool to see them bring that into nighttime, and who better than Kelly and Mark?
Right, exactly. And I know that they're super excited about being part of it. And then also Richard Nixon, Agnes Nixon's son. So it's this beautiful generational thing.
Yeah, not this Nixon.
Yeah. So it's exciting. It's really exciting.
Yeah, they're really keeping it all in the family with her son and with bringing you guys in. And it's supposed to be about the generations of family, just sort of like how the soaps are in general. So it's so cool to see this in nighttime. And it's not like it's unheard of, but it really is unheard of to see a daytime show become a nighttime, more serialized show as well. Isn't this the first one? Because we haven't.
It's the first time.
Yeah,
it's the first time that a soap opera, a legitimate soap opera that was on the air for more than 40 years, you know, is being resurrected as a nighttime show. It's the first time ever. So it's really exciting to be part of that.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking as I was racking my brain to think of if there was anything, because even with stuff like Dark Shadows and Port Charles, I remember seeing the first episode of Port Charles in prime time, but the show was on daytime. It wasn't, that was like a special thing, or they would have specials in the 90s bringing soaps in the nighttime, but never really resurrecting one as this nighttime drama.
Yeah, as a series, as an actual series.
The future of television is here, and it's Real Good TV. Download the It's Real Good TV app now on Roku, Apple, and Android devices, or stream online at itsrealgoodtv.com. And get instant access to hundreds of shows from 5 different networks. That's right, all of your favorite shows in one place. Free to download, free to watch. Watch on demand or stream one of our live TV networks in real time. Start watching today because it's Real Good TV.
Speaking of earlier, when you won the Emmy, that was the first year that the Emmys had gone back to primetime. This was one of those benefits to COVID, as much as we could say, is that, you know what, they were like, people that they're home, they're watching, and they've started watching the soaps again, because at that time it was on CBS, and they had been airing reruns of their soaps, The Young and the Restless, which you won for, and they also were doing it for Bold and the Beautiful as well. So what was it like to finally be back in primetime for the daytime Emmys?
Oh my gosh, it was exciting, because that was how, when I started on daytime, there were 11 soaps. And at that point, they'd come down from 15 soaps. So a few had already been canceled, but there was 11 soap operas on the air. Soap operas were still thriving. And now we're down to like 4 soaps. So back in the heyday when it was on NBC and ABC, and it was such a huge, exciting thing, it was really fun to see one of that, like you said, the silver lining of COVID being that we were back on primetime, because people were really thirsting for any kind of, you know, any kind of awards shows or normalcy, or seeing people be dressed up on, you know, on TV again. I mean, nobody was having any, you know, access to anything. So it was really fun. Even though we were all stuck at home, it still was exciting. I mean, believe me, was it less than optimal to finally win an Emmy and have it be at home. Yeah, but you
Yeah,
know,
no
it's still, I
parties,
wanna,
no
yeah.
champagne.
I had my
Yeah.
family over, so
Yeah.
that was fun. And actually, I have to say that was the fun part because normally I wouldn't be able to have my whole family with me winning an Emmy. You know, I'd only have like one. You only end up with like one extra ticket, so there would have only been one person with me. So that was really, really exciting.
For the first time in a long time, we were all really in the same storm, not all in the same boat, you know, but everybody could sit down and watch the Emmys. And I think that's one thing we've seen with COVID and why there is this resurgence in daytime and why we're doing an event like this, you know, a virtual Comic-Con for the soaps, is because I do see that now that people have been forced to be at home, I mean, the silver lining again is daytime is back. People, it was comforting to see like what John and Marlena are up to or what Victor Newman's doing.
Because you can check in a decade later and the people that you loved are usually still there.
Yeah.
You can jump right in and in 2 days you can pretty much glean what happened over the last 10 years, like if you've missed it. So there's a real comfort to daytime.
Yeah, and hopefully this event brings comfort to fans at home as well, and just bringing them something that I've always wished there was. I'm a big nerd, so I was used to going to Comic-Cons, but we were all like, you know, why isn't there one for daytime? And this is kind of what soap fans should get after a crazy year like we've had, and we're bringing it to you in your home, just like the Emmys will be again this year on CBS.
Hi SoapCon Live, this is Paul Calais-Grover in Liverpool in the UK. I'm not going to be talking about soap operas that we have here. I'm sure you've heard of them. EastEnders set in London, Coronation Street set in Manchester, or even Brookside that was set in Liverpool here for decades. I'm going to be talking about the soap operas that mean something to me. Soap operas in America, the home of soap operas. For me, this is where I can live an alternative life, a life in the sun, a life of drama. So for me, American soap operas are the way, and the pinnacle for these soap operas for me are the likes of Dynasty, The Dallas, even Sunset Beach. We send over British actresses to be absolute stars in your soap operas. Who can't forget Emma Sims, General Hospital and Dynasty, Stephanie Beacham, The Colbys and Dynasty, Joan Collins, Dynasty. And don't forget Leslie Ann Down for Sunset Beach. So for me, American soap operas all the way. Thank you.
When most things were closed in LA, you had the privilege of working on The Young and the Restless. I was curious because the way that your character, Celeste Rosales, zoomed her son, did you do that in studio or did you do that at your house?
Well, I actually did that one in studio, but I have a friend, Patricia Adarbo,
Yes,
on the show too, and she's been zooming from home because she's a more regular character, so she's been at home and zooming. I actually got to go into studio. I think I was one of the first characters that they brought on that wasn't a regular, so they weren't sure how to have people zoom from home yet, and I think they thought, you know, okay, this will be able to make it a little more, we'll be able to regulate you know, the outcome better if I came into studio. So I did come into studio, but I know that Patricia does hers from home.
Watch The Doctors is Moving, and you're going to love the new location. Download It's Real Good TV to join your friends from Hope Memorial. Available online and all your devices. Already a Doctors subscriber? Then there's an email headed your way with a coupon code for free access, plus special bonuses for starting your new account on It's Real Good TV. Haven't gotten your email? Don't worry, you will soon. For details, visit itsrealgoodtv.com.
Okay, wait, do you remember the good old days? There's no other facet of the entertainment medium that ever did this. But on soap operas, there was that awesome moment when a character had been recast and they walk into the scene and then everything is a hold, no one moves, no one speaks, and this voice of God comes on and says, the role of Steve will now be played by Richard Burton, or whatever it is. You're like, and then the scene continues like nothing ever happened, and you're like, what? Where did my character go? What just happened? Yeah. And then you just go on like business as usual, like nothing just happened.
I do hope Pine Valley nods to some of those things, because obviously they won't have as tight of schedule as daytime, being as it's prime time. But maybe it'll be cute if they do a few of those.
I think they're thinking of going down a little darker path. They're gonna, make it a little twistier, a little darker, which will be fun.
But that's cool. So are you able to talk about if you guys have started filming Pine Valley yet?
We have not started filming yet. So we're, I know they're rewriting. They want to launch it in a really great way. So they want to make sure that it's perfect. So we haven't started shooting yet. I think they've got it slated for this summer.
Oh, well, that is good to know. For SoapCon Live, your meet and greets will be May 15th at 11 a.m. Pacific time, guys. You can do that, as well as get autographs and video greetings with Ava.
So call up and say hi. I am I don't bite. I'm not scary. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Ava.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.